Welcome to Mainland Television Regional News. I'm Graham O'Brien and today's news. In her last media interview, we speak to the mother of teenager Alex Renton. Lost pup spotted, police clamp down on highway speedsters and more. Nelson teenager Alex Renton passed away on Wednesday the 1st of July in Wellington Hospital, where he was kept in an induced coma after suffering from an unknown illness for 3 months. Alex's family maintained a vigil by his bedside during that whole time. Today, Chrissy Small spoke to Alex's mother Rose about that period and her struggles with the system to be able to legitimately administer a cannabis oil product to help alleviate Alex's seizures.
Rose Renton, it's really great to have you here. I believe this is going to be your last interview with the media until you've got your book all sorted and published. Yes. Now, this will be an interesting book, of course. It's going to document your whole time during the last 3 months, I believe,
yes, it will.
About Alex and the trials and tribulations that you've been going through as a family.
Yes.
Now, Rose, tell us about the time, this 3 months time. Just give us a brief rundown on how it's been and the fight with the system that you've endured over this time.
Obviously the most traumatic experience of our life as a family, and aside from Alex's illness, which was a mystery from the beginning, it was more in the hospital system with no say and having all rights removed, both his and ours as a family, and not being heard and really being bullied, and they'll defend that, but they know better. And the diaries are able to give a day-by-day account of our personal experience of being in that environment when it was completely foreign, and we realised as a family we never had a voice.
Gosh, that's a tough thing to actually, feel when you've got someone critically ill in the family.
Yeah,
it must have felt really unsupportive.
It did. Dealing with the hospital and the doctors was far more traumatic than dealing with Alex's mysterious illness. And I don't think our health system, which is meant to be a healing system, should be anything like that. And I wouldn't want anyone to ever experience what we did as a family.
Do you think this is a common thing? Have you had others approach you?
Yes, definitely. This isn't anything new. This is something that I guess once you get out of the hospital, people are so traumatised that they just want to let it go and forget it. I'll never forget it.
Now tell me, Rose, what would your advice be to medical professionals in this situation? How do you suggest they deal with situations like this?
They need to deal with individuals. They need to work with families and the individual as a whole. They need to look at holistic healing and not just the body. They need to look at the bigger picture, and I felt that's what they never did. So many mistakes made simply because they just refused to listen. I know they're stuck in a system, but as healers they have a responsibility to the individual, because each person in that hospital environment is an individual with a story, and that reflects in our body. And unless they're prepared to listen to that, we're not going to get anywhere in our health system.
So you've been an advocate for alternative health
my whole life.
Yeah, and obviously it is rubbed off on Alex as well.
Yes, Alex and I had an understanding that we just didn't agree with traditional medicine. In most cases. There are cases, obviously, you need it if you've had a car accident or you require heart surgery, and they are skilled. I'm not saying they're not skilled, but what I'm saying is that they do not know the answer to everything, and they need to get rid of the blinkers, get a bigger understanding of holistic healing, and treat people as individuals, not as mass. And I think that's what I noticed more than anything, is that in the critical care unit, it was like being in a mass institution that was computerised, and the individual in the bed, if you knew them, wasn't treated as the individual. Probably 2 doctors out of that entire hospital, and they know who they are, related to me and to Jess and to our family and to Alex as individuals. 2 out of hundreds.
Yeah. So there's a real learning there for future doctors, people coming through the system, that actually they need to take it on a case-by-case and personal situation, rather than treat them just like a number and a body.
Yeah, because we're a soul and we have emotions, and those things make up our wellness. And so you cannot treat a body just as a body, because we're multidimensional.
Yes. Do you think that this treatment of Alex possibly led to his
demise. His death? I don't know if we'll ever have answers. The Norse condition, which is the new onset refractory status epilepticus, which were the seizures that were not stopping, often a cause isn't found even after an autopsy. Obviously we chose not to have one for personal reasons, and I don't believe we'll ever find a cause for what happened, but I don't know if even that's what's at question here. I think the issues around Alex's health is we didn't get to choose our own treatment. We had to fight with political laws and doctors as a last line treatment for the CBD oil. Why can't we have cannabis products in the medicine cabinet, and when we get into ICU or any medical environment, if we have a choice on what medicines we choose, then that's human rights. We should not be plied with chemical drugs with no choice, which is why I gained the legal guardianship, so I could make some choices, and the choices that Alex would make himself.
Once you were given the guardianship, did attitudes change towards you in the hospital?
Not really. They just got cleverer and tried to do things without my knowledge, and so I ended up having to write down and sign what I refused to have done. It made things more open because they had to communicate, because they knew they were breaking the law if they didn't. But until that guardianship was awarded, they were underhand often in their swap and change of drugs. At one stage, the Thio, which was used as the sedation medication, was running out, and we were threatened with the medication running out, and what would they do next? So you have a child or a young man heavily sedated on a particular medication that I was told repeatedly over 10 days or more that it was running out.
Gosh.
And they were wanted to swap it with ketamine.
Right.
That's what you're dealing with.
Okay.
Threats.
So, yeah.
That's somebody's health. That's my child.
That's right. So they didn't ask you what you wanted?
No. They were not interested. They believe they have the onus on knowing. And this Norse condition, and I'm sure they've read up about it, they would know that regardless of what treatment is done, you don't get an outcome. So were they using him as a guinea pig for 3.5 months? Did they torture his body for that long? That's inhumane. And I often use the word barbaric, because that's how, for me, they came across. Now, I know doctors train wanting to heal, but they've lost their way. And there's so much information now about medicinal cannabis, and they all seem to have their heads in the sand. Or are they fearful of their jobs because the politicians have their head in the sand? There's so much discussion now about John Key spending $26 million on a flag, and yet they're not going to change some medical laws.
Yeah.
Shocking.
Priorities are a bit odd, aren't they?
It's very strange, and unless people start standing up and saying what they want, they'll remain that way.
So, Rose, this battle is going to continue, isn't it?
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think since the secret dose of CBD oil came out on Sunday night, the media have got hold of that, and they're really quite keen to have that as the highlight. But for me, the highlight is we have a freedom of choice around our medical care, and the politicians need to look at changing the laws so cannabis is available to us in a medicine form if we so choose it. Rather than continue to defend myself around the secret dose, I'd like to focus on writing the diaries and giving people the full story, the bigger picture from our side, and why I made that decision, that choice. And then from there, actually educate people as to why these laws need to change, and do that, I guess, in a quieter way.
in your book, will you be describing what homeopathy is as well?
Yeah, I can do. Yeah, definitely.
Because I think it would give people a basis of where you're coming from, a bit of an understanding. Because homeopathy is, well, we know the royal family have always had homeopathy in their lives, but it is a more natural way of dealing with illness and unwellness, and as you say, on a holistic plane
definitely.
as well.
They actually stopped all homeopathics at one stage, the hospital.
Oh, really?
Yes. And I've got that recorded, the exact date. So they stopped them. They wouldn't let me. So I was only allowed to apply topically and massage, which I did with essential oils. And Alex had regular cranial sacral treatments as well, which is another form of holistic healing and kinesiology. So Alex had more than just the homeopathic, but I think that whole enabling the body to respond and self-heal is important to us as a family, rather than blanket and knock the body out and then expect it to respond when it can't. And so, yeah.
Did the doctors tell you they could actually fix whatever was happening? Did they ever say that their drugs would actually work?
Yes. Yeah,
they did.
The rituximab has got proven results. The cyclophosphamide, which is chemotherapy, proven results, but they didn't have a diagnosis, so I'm not quite sure where they get their strength of conviction. And all these chemicals will help Alex. Alex's body never had a chemical in it.
Right. So, okay, how was Alex in that 3-month period? There was a time when he did open his eyes.
That was a lovely time when the heavy sedation came off as they were transferring him onto ketamine, and he would open his eyes. Once the heavy thio came off, he was also able to breathe himself, voluntary. So those moments were exciting, because you always hold out hope. Towards the end, obviously, I knew that he was dying. You could see it in those final days. And rather than put him through any more, being able to step back and remove the life support and all the beeping and the monitoring, and have him in a quiet space with his family, with his own music, was really lovely, because at least it was peaceful, and I was able to feed him my own food instead of what they call food in the hospital. And so there was quite a turnaround in that time, which respected Alex for the first time in 3 months.
Gosh, that's saying something, isn't it? So Rose, the book is the next project.
Yes, that's my next project, which will be lovely, and I think it'll be really healing for Jess and I to be able to go through those days and everything we recorded. And there's blood pressure monitoring, temperature monitoring, and the X-rays and the scans and the MRIs and medication changes. It's everything in there. So it'll actually be quite therapeutic for us both, and it gives New Zealand something to read and understand the full picture, and not just the glimpses of photographs of Alex.
Right. And also it's a great story in as far as empowerment in the end, because you felt that the system disempowered you, but you took your power back.
Yes.
So this is another good story in that. Do you think that more people need to actually start questioning the system? I
think if it doesn't feel right, question it. And you have a right to ask questions. And I think that's important. If you feel comfortable in that system, then that's fantastic. And I would never question anyone that feels comfortable in that system with their choice. But for those of us that choose a more natural way, with our medicine or with our healing, and you find yourself in that situation for whatever reason, then question everything, because it's your body and it's your life and it's your right. And I don't think we ever lose that right. We are born with the right, and we should die with the right to choose.
Right.
The curtain has been lifted on a new resource which will make Saxton Stadium an even more attractive place to use. A spend up of $37,000 means an ultra-modern dividing net was able to be installed last week to allow multiple sports, classes and events to take place simultaneously. The net is actually a roof-to-floor curtain made of durable coated vinyl mesh, which is also fire and mildew resistant. It has been mainly funded by Canterbury Community Trust and Saxton Field Stadium Sports Society. Sport Tasman Stadium manager Tony Naylor has said that the net will allow wider, more efficient and safer use of the stadium by ball sports, allowing other sports such as dodgeball and indoor bowls to use the stadium alongside without disruption. This net replaces a hanging net system which was very labour intensive and time consuming to set up and pack down. Canterbury Community Trust trustee Bill Dalberg said the Trust was proud to support the installation at Saxton Stadium. Police are conducting a campaign to lower the speed of drivers of Whakatū Drive after gathering information via NZTA showing some people are travelling at alarming speeds on the road. Vehicle counts showed that in a 7-day period, 4,000 vehicles on Whakatū Drive were travelling at an average speed of 113 km an hour. The highest speed detected during that period was 198 km an hour. Police are concerned about the speeds drivers are reaching on the stretch of highway and have information about speeds being reached more than double the legal limit. A motorist clocked at 170 km an hour received a 9-month disqualification when they appeared in the Nelson District Court recently. Nelson Bays Road Policing Senior Sergeant Grant Andrews said police will be ensuring their presence is highly visible on Whakatū Drive in coming weeks in an effort to drive speeds down and prevent injury or death. Members of the public can report dangerous driving by calling *555. A new proposed health and safety bill before Parliament could see the rights of recreational walkers, bikers, hunters and trampers be taken away from crossing privately owned farmland. This proposed law could make farmers liable for any injuries. I spoke to Robin McNeil of Federated Mountain Club to get his thoughts on this proposed new law. Robin, thanks very much for joining us today. You're from the Federated Mountain Club. Can you just tell us a little bit of background on your club, please?
Yes, so Federated Mountain Clubs is an umbrella group for about 100 tramping, mountaineering clubs throughout New Zealand. We've got a membership of effectively 18,000 people represented in those clubs. So it's all aspects of being in the mountains, being in the hills, tramping, even hunting, cycling.
Fantastic. Yeah, that's a good membership you've got there. I mean, the outdoor pursuits and stuff is one of the main things for New Zealanders, isn't it?
Tramping is remarkably popular. People tend to sometimes dismiss it, but something like 10% of all New Zealanders every year get into the outdoors. And tramping you can define anything from a couple of days walk to a several weeks walk to a couple of hours walk. But 10% of the population enjoy it every year at least. So it's a favourite New Zealand pastime, that's for sure.
And why not with the place that we live in, right?
Yeah, well, at Belfast you could certainly say that, but I live in the south of the South Island, and I think it's even better. But I'm sure your viewers might have a different view on that.
Hey, we're talking about the new health and safety laws that are coming through. I mean, throughout every industry, every industry in New Zealand seems to be a bit worried. Building. You've got a particular grievance with it. Can you tell us a little bit about why you're worried about the new health and safety laws?
Yes, well, I mean, the last thing we want is anyone hurt or injured or killed. So that's the first thing that needs to be said. But there's more than one way to skin a cat. The problem is that under the proposed legislation, a farm becomes a workplace, and that means that the poor old farmer is hit with all these laws of being a workplace, and they're going to be, I think quite rightly, worried that any tramper going over the back paddock, even though the back paddock might be tens of kilometres away with a high country station, worried about that he is responsible for the welfare of the tramping party. Well, it's taken something like 23 years for most farmers in New Zealand to realise that even under the existing law, which is fairly explicit that trampers aren't their responsibility unless they take money off them, it's still taken 23 years for the farmers to make sure they're happy with that. This new legislation makes the whole thing even more uncertain. We have to start all over again, and we just fear that the farmers are going to say, hey, we don't want to have our income jeopardised. It's going to be easier to put a sign up saying, no trampers, no trespassers, keep out, this is a work safe zone. That would be a tragedy. It would be a tragedy for the farmers. We've had a long history of working well with farmers, some famous names and high country users that work across their land for a century almost.
Sure.
I'd be ashamed to see all that just disappear because farmers suddenly realise that they might be having this huge risk.
And is that part of the problem, Robin, that this new law is really ambiguous and it's going to be left up to the best paid lawyer to argue his case in court?
Yeah, well, we're a volunteer organisation and we don't get any funding from anyone other than our members. And, the last thing we want to do is waste money going to court or have judicial reviews or deal with trespassers or even just having the law read to us saying, well, we can't go across there. I mean, there's got, good legislation would make it very clear what the intent of the legislation is, and the fact that someone walking over a back paddock is not part of the legislation. So we think that just a little bit of attention in the bill could fix this pretty straightforward. Just need some attention. There's another area that actually crops up with the same oversight, or a similar oversight, and that is the Southland Tramping Club, for example. They're all volunteers. They go tramping in the Takitimu Mountains. Someone has an accident, so that's pretty sad, and they've got to sort themselves out, and it's an accident, and ACC deals with it. Poor old Tararua Tramping Club over in Wellington there, they've got the mishap under this to start off by having a cleaner clean their club rooms. That means they're an employer under the bill as it's written. That means if they're on a tramping trip, which has got nothing to do with their club rooms, let alone the cleaner, someone has a nasty accident, they've got the whole weight of the legislation on their shoulders, and that's going to be a huge worry for them.
And you bring up a good...
Makes no sense. It's nuts.
No, it seems crazy and it seems ludicrous. And you bring up the point that, volunteer organisations, people are there, they're giving their time, they're doing it for free, and all of a sudden, they've got the full weight of these laws coming down on their heads and the full fines that come with them.
That's right, and it's the last thing we want. Volunteers, it's not just the volunteers themselves, who are doing the work that you have to worry about. I mean, they're going to hurt themselves or not, regardless of what bits of paper might be floating around anywhere. What it's going to hurt the most is the people who organise the volunteers,
yes,
who of course may be likely to be volunteers themselves. Suddenly, out of the goodness of their hearts, someone does something nuts. Suddenly they're up in court and got all the expense and acts. I mean, that's crazy. Look, what we've got to get away from in this country is assuming that we can cure all problems by signing pieces of paper or even predicting every single accident that could possibly happen. Generally, the accident that does happen is the one that no one predicted in the first place anyway and didn't have in the health and safety checklist.
And I think, Robin, you hit the nail on the head that many people are now questioning exactly the same. We can't just get rid of all dangers out of the workplace or anywhere with a piece of paper saying that someone's liable for it.
That's right. We have what I call blame and transparency philosophy in New Zealand now. We call it accountability, but it's really just blame and transparency and blame. You want to be able to find someone to blame for whatever has happened to you. But if you've done something stupid, it might just happen to be your own fault, and if the tree falls on you, that might just happen to be really bad luck if you're tramping in the forest, because there's millions of trees there and they do fall down,
Sure.
Accidents sometimes do happen for no good reason apart from just really bad luck, and that needs to be understood too. I think the coroner does recognise that, but legislators don't always.
Robin, thanks very much for your time, and we'll keep on to the story and hopefully things will change for the better.
Well, I'm sure they will. I mean, I don't think any politician really wants to look foolish. Actually, I think most politicians actually want to see the right thing done. So I'm confident now they've been alerted to the problems that they'll put some decent legislation in place. So let's have our fingers crossed and believe in the goodness of politicians.
We'll leave it on that. Thanks very much. It seems to be the time of year when youngsters are left to their own devices. We caught up with a young fur seal pup this week who was discovered while sunning itself on the Ruby Bay coastline. These seal pups are left by their mothers at a relatively young age to fend for themselves in a fight that becomes a battle of the fittest for survival. This young seal pup is likely to have been washed up in the weekend by the storm. After the break, we'll bring you the latest weather update and some events and happenings coming up from around the region.
Why would you want to pay as much as $1,000 for a single bed mattress when you can buy a high quality locally made mattress like this for as little as $220? And a queen size mattress could cost you in excess of $3,000, but at Nelson Beds you could have a mattress like this as low as $425. So why would you go out and spend a fortune on your child's bedroom when you can come to Nelson Beds and buy a complete single mattress and base set, a 7-drawer Scotch chest, a headboard and a 3-drawer bedside cabinet for as little as $979? So call and discuss our custom manufacturing options and local after sales service at Nelson Beds, Nelson's only bedding manufacturer.
I'm Francis from Nelson Auto Glass. We repair all auto glass, stone chips, windscreen replacements, scratch removal.
If you have an auto glass issue, our team will sort it.
Nelson Auto Glass Specialist, 84 Vanguard Street, Nelson.
Hi, my name's Ian Mortimer. Mortimer Auto Upholstery is your one-stop shop for all your upholstery needs. We do car and boat interiors, boat canopies, ute tonneau covers, canvas and PVC fabrication. Call in and see us in Oxford Mews, 72 Oxford Street, Richmond.
Hi everyone, I'm Malcolm Harris from The Facilitators. We now look after sales for mainland TV, radio, Sky and online. New Zealand On Air's latest Colmar Brunton survey confirms mainland's large multimedia audience. If you're in business or want to put a message out to everyone in the Nelson Tasman region, plus nationwide on Sky or worldwide online, please give me a call or see our website at www.mainlandtv.nz.
We're the team at JCar, right here in Nelson, 120 Hardy Street. Our shop is full of electronic items,
including security alarm systems, electronic components,
solar and power,
electronics toys,
sound systems, cables and much, much more. JCar.
120 Hardy Street, Nelson.
Victory 60 Plus is on Tuesdays at 1:30 through to 3:30 p.m. at 238 Upper Vanguard Street. You can join in for cards, games and a cuppa.
On behalf of the team here at Mainland Television News, thank you for joining us, and we'll bring you the latest news and events from around the region again tomorrow.
Supporting local content so you can see more of New Zealand On Air.
Welcome to Smugglers Pub and Cafe, open 7 days a week with free parking all day. Our lunch menus have that fat old-fashioned flavour where we treat you like treasure with the food you'll savour.
We cater for children, grannies and granddads too, with special rates and privileges given to the elderly lunchtime crew. Our staff are friendly and kind and want to see you all come back time after time.
Daytime or evening, it doesn't matter. Give us a call on 546 4084 and we'll be happy to spoil ya.
World War I was a defining period in our history, impacting greatly on the lives of people from the Nelson province. Memories of the First World War is an exhibition which will be displayed in a number of regional venues and is currently on at the Nelson Provincial Museum.
.1 The Shed.